So I saw Birds of Prey opening night, and boy do I have a lot of things to say about it. I'll be honest, from the get-go I had a lot of sour feelings about its announcement, mostly due to Harley Quinn being at the forefront and its R rating. But I was willing to give it a shot. After all, it seemed like DC and Warner Brothers were slowly making steps in the right direction when it came to the DC Extended Universe. I personally really liked Aquaman and Shazam. I even kinda loved Justice League, despite all its flaws. From the trailers and promos, it seems like overall, Birds of Prey was going to just have a really fun theme and tone that even I could vibe with. So how bad could it be? Ah, I see. So I am the minority here. Okay, so just hear me out. As a comic fan and just an outrageous Birds of Prey fan, this movie isn't the worst thing in the world. In fact, there are a lot of people, and I mean a lot of people, who like it, and that's great. I love that so many people love and connected with this movie. But that doesn't mean I don't want to point out some of the glaring issues with the film. That being said, I didn't completely hate Birds of Prey, so let's start with what I did like. Despite my complications with the movie, overall it was a lot of fun. It sets a unique and colorful tone right from its start, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but a lot of that stems from Harley Quinn as its main character. It allows for parts to get a little off the rails because Quinn herself is, well, off the rails, which makes certain moments totally believable. While I'm sure there are some of us who have thought about it at one point or another, I can't say there's very many characters that can pull off stuffing a breakfast sandwich into their bra. There are these really cute moments, particularly when Harley is introducing new characters, where she has these monologues with an animated bio about said character. These are extremely enjoyable and serve as nice introductions, especially for a mainstream audience. On a technical level, this movie is really well done. There's a lot of scenes that try to do some experimental cinematics. Most notably, the opening bar scene with Harley Quinn, and an intense moment towards the end involving Roman Sionis and his infamous mask. The fight scenes in this movie, I should also note, are out of this world. Each character is approached differently, their skills being highlighted, making them feel wholly unique. Harley Quinn, who it's noted in the movie as a former gymnast, is fluid against her foes, utilizing her skills and tight reflexes to best her enemies. While Huntress approaches her opponents in very brutal and almost animalistic nature, which suit her character perfectly. The creators made the right move bringing in the fight coordinators from John Wick, and that brilliance shows in every scene. Each hit lands with power and strength, but not the brute strength we're used to when it comes to action. As our girls are clearly smaller in size by the men they constantly go up against, that disadvantage isn't played off just for the sake of balance, and instead it's compensated with the use of makeshift weapons like bats, brass knuckles, and even a lighter at one point to give our girls the upper hand. When I was in these moments, especially when you have a soundtrack that absolutely slaps blaring in the background, I was here for it 100%. I loved that, and didn't want these moments to end. Which makes it just a little awkward that in the climactic fight scene, Hart's Barracuda is blaring in the background. Y'all know Shrek 3 did it first, right? That being said, this is the first DCEU movie that doesn't end on a big dumb CGI battle, and I am so unbelievably thankful that we are finally able to step away from that. Then we have Roman Sionis, otherwise known as the Black Mask. If you ask me, Ewan McGregor's performance of Black Mask stole the entire show. He's the best part of this movie, hands down, and he's that character you just love to hate. He's a temperamental, spoiled little rich boy with loud and extravagant outbursts throughout much of the film. While I didn't agree with some of his motives throughout the plot, and I'll get to that a bit later, everything about his character just worked. Birds of Prey also features Victor Zsasz as a minor villain, making him the right-hand man to Roman Sionis. While I think some of his craziness is a little downplayed compared to what we've seen in the comics, his role in this movie was also one of my favorites. The dynamic between these two is honestly perfect, as Zsasz' calm and collected crazy acts as a foil to Roman's extravagant maniac. Black Mask is my second favorite villain out of the entire DC universe, and he's even a prominent member of my scumbag boyfriend army. So as a minor character who isn't known by a lot of people, I was really excited to see him featured as the key villain of this movie, and boy did they not disappoint. Now let's talk about the hard part. Let's talk about the real reason why we're here. Let's talk about what I didn't like. If it's not already obvious, from here on out, I'm pretty much going to be spoiling the rest of the movie. So if you haven't seen Birds of Prey, you might want to check out now. I'm not going to bother complaining about Harley Quinn's involvement over the other members of the Birds of Prey, because honestly, it's a waste of breath and we know why it was done. From the start of this movie's announcement, we were told that this is a Harley Quinn movie first and foremost, with the Birds of Prey being secondary characters. Just look at the marketing. Harley Quinn, at this point, is a mainstream character and is one who can sell tickets and fill seats. Even Margot Robbie herself, who I credit for her passion, dedication, and research to the source material, said that there was an option for a Gotham City Sirens movie on the table. But she knows that most people already know who Catwoman and Poison Ivy are and wanted to give characters like Huntress and Black Canary a chance to shine. Each of the characters, given what screen time they are allowed, are portrayed and represented pretty accurately, and the performances from the cast are absolutely fantastic. You could tell everyone on set was having a good old time. There's a lot of inspiration from the source material, along with direct moments of translation from panel to screen. Now that I've said that, that brings me to my first issue. It doesn't feel like there's a whole lot of characters interacting with each other. Sure, there are isolated moments sprinkled throughout the film, but it isn't until the last 20 minutes of this movie that we get all of our characters in one room. And despite it happening in the very end, it feels rushed. Huntress in particular feels shoehorned in for the sake of having her with the rest of the group. Prior to the finale, she never has a single interaction with any of the other characters. Aside from some quippy dialogue here and there really isn't a lot of connection or even chemistry between our birds. In the big climactic finale, our girls are fighting a group of thugs, but rather than do it together, each one seemingly goes off into their own little corner, taking on their own gang of bad guys one by one. Do you remember what it was like seeing Avengers for the first time in theaters and watching Black Widow jump off Captain America's shield? It's subtle, but it's so insanely cool because our heroes are working together. The closest we ever even get to this interaction is at one point Harley Quinn reaches over to Black Canary during the middle of a fight and hands Dinah a hair tie. I loved this, and I desperately wanted to see more of this subtle contact between characters. Now it's time for me to get a little intense on you guys, and not everybody's going to agree with me, and that's okay. But when you think about this movie, when you really think about it, the plot isn't very good. I know I can be nitpicky, but just bear with me on this one. After Harley Quinn breaks up with the Joker in magnanimous fashion, it essentially puts a giant target on her back for everyone in Gotham. This moment slowly segues into Black Mask and his motives. Roman Sionis, despite being a little rich kid, has been cut from his parents' money. Now, I don't agree with this, but okay, I'll bite. And he turns his sights toward the infamous Bertinelli diamond, which is said to have an encrypted code which will unlock the unlimited Bertinelli fortune. Are you losing me here? Harley Quinn strikes up a deal with Black Mask that in exchange for her life, she'll retrieve the diamond, which was previously swallowed by Cassandra Cain. I'm sorry, what? You're telling me that this entire movie, essentially revolves around a poop joke. There's a lot of moving pieces with this movie that just don't make sense in an attempt to get all these characters on the same path. Black Canary, who has worked in the Black Mask Club for years, suddenly gets roped into Roman's plans because he saw her kick the crap out of someone in an alley. Yet, in the final act where Black Mask feels ultimately betrayed by Black Canary and her involvement with Harley Quinn, and is the entire reason why he shows up in the final scene in the first place, there is no real conflict resolution between the two. He specifically orders Zsasz not to kill Black Canary because he wants to deal with her himself. Yet he never does. Huntress is only involved because she's been hunting down the people responsible for her family's murder one by one, and it just so happens that Zsasz, Black Mask's right-hand man, was one of the men who pulled the trigger. And Renee Montoya is only there because standard cop stuff. No, okay, so that one actually works. There's a solid core foundation here that I really love, but I feel like there was a less convoluted way to make our characters reach the same goal. Hear me out. Scrap the diamond plot completely. At this point, it feels like the diamond is only there to help further the connection between Black Mask and Huntress, and it feels really awkward, like it doesn't belong. Don't make Roman's motives and goals be about the money. Instead, let's focus on Black Mask's want for power throughout Gotham City. Make it so that he's still trying to be known and feared throughout the city as this untouchable crime lord. What better way to establish that power than by taking out the girl of the most powerful man in Gotham, who, might I add, has just made herself a tangible target by announcing their breakup. Harley, fully aware of that target, is now isolated from everyone. The bad guys don't want anything to do with her, and neither do the good guys, but the latter seems her best bet, as at least the good guys aren't trying to kill her. Enter the Birds of Prey. Let Black Canary already be an established vigilante. For Dinah, this should be particularly easy, as we are already told as an audience that her mother also went around as a costume superhero. Connect her further by allowing her to be undercover at Black Mask Club in an attempt to take him down, Here, she can easily convene with Renee Montoya, who's also investigating Black Mask, and we can even throw Huntress into the mix, who is slowly going down our hit list against all organized crime. This allows the birds to come together, forming a group of their own naturally, before Harley is thrown into the mix. When Harley does finally come face to face with the Birds of Prey, it's in an attempt to beg the girls to give her a second chance, along with the protection she needs after moonlighting as a psychopathic villain for years. This gives us a chance to have a resolution between our main villain and all our main characters, instead of just having a resolution between Harley and Black Mask, who I might add presently doesn't have that much at stake compared to some of the other characters. Most of the movie portrays this message that Harley Quinn doesn't need the Joker or anyone else because she's her own person and can stand on her own. Yet she goes and forms her own girl gang, which feels a little contradictory. I'm not saying this is a bad message by any means. I love the idea of Harley going off and finding her own family, but again, it's completely contradictory. In the way it's presented, it just doesn't make sense. Instead, this would give us a chance to explore the theme of second chances, and gives Harley an opportunity to question her own morality. I hate to say this too, but Cassandra Cain is a character that just doesn't feel like she belongs in this movie. While in comics she has frequently teamed up with the Birds of Prey, I feel like her character is one that could have been saved for a sequel. I took 2 non-comic friends along with me to this movie, and both of them at one point leaned over and asked if she was a real character. There's not really anything special about her. Cassandra Cain, heir to the League of Assassins and one of the top martial artists in the DC universe, is unfortunately reduced to a tropey foster child with a knack for pickpocketing. We've basically already seen this character in the last DC movie with Shazam, so doing it again just feels redundant. Cassandra could have easily been a part of this universe, especially in a sequel where our characters are already established, and she would have been able to keep her infamous mantle. Which brings me to the film's biggest offender, its use, or rather misuse, of colorful language. Now this is the biggest problem I have with this movie. If you know me, then you know I swear like a sailor, but when it feels like every other word of dialogue is the word fuck, it makes me cringe in my seat. Now I'm not saying superheroes can't curse. Black Canary in particular has a colorful vocabulary that is seen from several creators across various storylines. But in comics, we don't actually see our heroes curse. Not really. Instead, we get cute stars and symbols that represent the colorful dialogue without really saying it. I know Black Canary and Huntress curse, but that doesn't make me okay with them actually saying it. If anything, it feels really awkward and alien. It feels like the only reason that this movie has the R rating it does is because it has the language of a Tarantino movie. Sure, there are some moments of intense violence, a few mangled faces, and even an exploding body, but I feel like these few moments could have easily been toned down if they needed to achieve a PG-13 rating. In another action film about badass ladies doing their thing, this would have been totally acceptable. And I'm not even saying that there can't be rated R comic book movies. Joker and Deadpool have already disproved that theory. But in a movie like Birds of Prey, it just doesn't feel right. I can't comfortably take my 13-year-old cousin who adores and even dressed up as Black Canary to see this movie. Again, I'm not saying younger viewers can't see this movie, but it's gonna restrict a large audience, and especially a large audience deserving to have strong female role models like Black Canary and Renee Montoya. The consistent use of the F-bomb overall was just extremely distracting, especially when key moments of exposition are being presented. I don't know if the writers felt like they had to exploit the word to earn their R rating, or if they did it because they thought it would add humor into the writing, which is a shame because there are a few moments of comedy throughout the movie that actually had me laugh out loud and don't use this sort of language at all. When Birds of Prey was good, it was really good, but there was a lot of dumb stuff that was really distracting. Maybe I'm just being too harsh and overcritical, but this movie wasn't for me, and unfortunately it feels like this movie was only made for half an audience in mind. While that isn't necessarily a bad thing, I personally would have loved an unapologetic girl gang movie under an entirely new IP. It does make me worry that with alienating a vast majority, it won't allow this movie to succeed in the way it deserves. But by all means, prove me wrong if it means we get to see more female-led and centric films, comic or otherwise. I see a lot of people saying they love Birds of Prey because it's a bunch of badass babes beating up a bunch of dudes, and that's totally fine and I love that. But there are also a lot of other movies like Mad Max Fury Road, Ocean's 8, and Atomic Blonde that carry a similar message with not nearly as many flaws as Birds of Prey. While I'm not entirely happy with the outcome of this movie, I'm extremely thankful for its dedicated and passionate creators and cast creating a film that many will love and connect with. It's put a lot of new eyes on a lot of characters that mean near and dear to my heart, So, if you loved Birds of Prey, or even if you didn't but just want to learn more about these characters, make sure to go out and support your local comic shop. Just know, I won't be in a rush to see Birds of Prey and the emancipation of one Harley Quinn anytime soon. God, what a stupid title.